In past episodes, we've heard from energy healers who work with the emotion code, the Akashic records, and theta healing. On this episode, we'll learn about a healing modality that some people may feel is a little more down to earth: therapeutic yoga. Welcome to the Peep Podcast. I'm your host, Nicolle, and on this episode, we're talking about therapeutic yoga. First, I want to give a huge thank you to Shannon LeGros of Into the Fray for having me on her podcast to talk about my terrifying experiences as a teenager that prompted me to start trying to understand hauntings. I must admit that I fangirled a bit because she is one of my podcasting inspirations. Into the Fray is an interview podcast in which she talks with normal people about their paranormal experiences, ranging from Bigfoot encounters to UFO sightings with missing time to hauntings and so much more. And she does it in such a way that everyone feels comfortable sharing their stories. Please check her show out if you haven't already, and to make it easy, I'll put the link to my episode in the show notes. I'd also like to thank her listeners who've given the Peep podcast a chance. I'm so glad you're here. My guest on this episode came highly recommended by a friend who has been helped by the healing modality they practice. Kristi Schwickerath and Kim Stewart joined me to talk about therapeutic yoga, and I'll let them explain exactly what that is and how it differs from typical yoga class. I do need to ask that you keep in mind with this and any other energy healing topics I cover that these conversations are not meant to take the place of talking with your doctor about any physical issues you may be experiencing. Holistic and energy healing modalities are additional practices you may choose to try in tandem with traditional medicine. Okay, let's dive in with Kristi and Kim. Hi, Kim and Kristi. How are y'all doing tonight?
Doing well. Thank you.
Doing all right. Thanks for having us.
I'm so glad you could join me. This is going to be a very interesting conversation. I have a friend who said that I should get in touch with you because yoga therapy, which you practice, has saved her on numerous levels. And so I've said, okay, I definitely need to talk to them. So you practice, from what I could tell on the website, more than just yoga. Can you explain how you got into what you're doing right now and then give us an explanation of what you're doing right now?
So I'll kind of kick it off if that's, because Kristi's will be, because that's how I met Kristi. Okay. So I got into yoga. I think a lot of people can probably relate how I got into yoga. So I got into yoga because I started running and I needed to stretch. And then it became a little bit more than that. And I started then into therapy because I was getting divorced and all of that. So it was kind of all encompassing. And then as the pandemic started, I started to realize that all of those things kind of came into one, but I didn't really know how that was. And I was kind of missing a piece. And so I started doing some research. And I found this thing called yoga therapy that brings all of that together and kind of brings the physical and the emotional and the intellectual and the spiritual piece all together. And that's how I found yoga therapy. And that's how I found Kristi through my training. So that's how I came into yoga therapy. I'll let Kristi go into her story.
So my story starts all the way back in 2000. I was in a car accident very beginning part of the year, within the first 2 weeks. And that kicked off chronic pain. And I've lived with chronic pain since then. And about 10 years into that journey with chronic pain, my then in his early 50s father, who was a dairy farmer in rural Minnesota, um, introduced me to yoga because he and my blind mother were practicing at a local studio there. And he's super introverted, and he started talking about yoga out in public in a restaurant to another man. And like, oh my gosh, if my dad is doing this, it must be something. And I tried like YouTube yoga and stuff, and it hadn't worked for me. It exacerbated things. But they were convinced this was going to work. And so I was visiting for 2 weeks back home, and I went to 4 classes over that 2 weeks of yin yoga, which is a slower paced type of yoga practice. Gets into your fascia. You hold the postures for 3 to 5 minutes, but you're on the mat the whole time, and you're propping things up with pillows and blankets and blocks and stuff. And it gave me the space to realize that my breath could allow me to take back a little bit of the control that pain had taken away from me. Like, pain did not have to rule everything. I could use the breath to bring a little more comfort into the discomfort. And so I practiced religiously in Colorado, where I was living at the time. And then 7 years ago, we moved to DC, and I started going to a studio that focused much more on the holistic aspect of yoga. It wasn't simply about the physical practice. It wasn't just about the asana, but it was about the whole thing, your physical being, but your mental being, your emotional being, and your spiritual being. And then I found out that studio owner was a yoga therapist, and I got corralled into helping develop their yoga therapy training program. And I'm currently a staff member for that program. And it was through that I met Kim. And, from day one, because I was dealing with chronic pain, I was essentially practicing therapeutic yoga, especially because I'm a huge nerd. I like to research everything. And I ordered in every possible book on yoga that I could from my library from day one, and was reading up on everything, learning the anatomy, asking questions of my healthcare practitioners to understand the anatomy more and what I was experiencing. And so that's how I got into yoga therapy. And that opened up a whole nother barrel of monkeys. I ended up, between my yoga teacher training and my yoga therapy training, I ended up becoming a crystal Reiki master. I went through a 2-year shaman training, and scads of other sorts of things. It just kind of opened the world of like subtle energy and energy healing and things like that to me. And so I work with crystals, and I read cards and do all of that fun stuff. And as a shamanic practitioner or an animist, I do soul retrievals and extractions, and a variety of shamanic healing. And what I really like to do is kind of blend it all into a modality that's just me. It's not really straight up yoga therapy necessarily, and it's not straight up shamanic healing. It's kind of me tapping into all of my gifts and tapping into spirit and getting out of the way and just allowing the healing to happen.
Wow. So had you had any experience with the metaphysical side of things before you opened up during yoga therapy and learning all these other modalities?
The closest you could probably come to saying that would be, I did do a lot of acupuncture treatment. Early on, I did massage therapy, acupuncture, and chiropractic work. We didn't really talk about the subtle anatomy and stuff of that when I was doing it, though. So I didn't really feel like I was really stepping into the energy healing. Although as things progressed, my massage therapist started kind of edging me in that direction a little bit. And I did a lot with essential oils to help, improve circulation and help reduce pain sensations and things like that. When I lived in Colorado, I was your stereotypical crunchy granola woman person. We grew most of our food and I canned it. And I made our cleaning products and my face products, and I did all that sort of stuff. But when we moved to DC, our square footage dropped dramatically. And so I don't do a lot of that stuff. I still do the essential oils and occasionally mix up batches of my own stuff. And I definitely do it for clients if I feel it will be helpful to them. But it's not something I do on the regular right now. I'm looking forward to the day when I can resume those activities.
That totally makes sense. So Kristi, you live near DC. Kim, where are you located?
I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay. And how did the two of you work together? Or do you work together?
So I am in the training program that Kristi mentioned, and that's how we met. So we met about a year ago, and it's been a very interesting ride through the training program as I've learned about everything that she's mentioned. It brings all of those things that we talked about together, and I knew very little. Right, so it's one of those. It's opened my eyes, I guess you could say. I played with crystals as a child. I love animals. I'm a very empathetic and intuitive person. And all of the things that Kristi talks about, it brought all of those pieces together. And it brings a sense of calmness and peace that I think your friend mentioned, that she was like, you have to talk about this. Yeah.
So how exactly does yoga therapy work?
So yoga therapy, man, how do I describe it? It's kind of like you take yoga therapy, you take PT, you take a psychotherapist, you put them all in a blender and hit go. I mean, as a yoga therapist, I don't diagnose, I don't prescribe, but you experience yoga, which may be the asana piece, the postures, but it may be meditation, it may be breathing practices, things like that. And you experience it in a dialogue with the yoga therapist. So, I might put a client in down dog, and while they're in down dog, I'll ask them what they're feeling. And most people, of course, will answer with the physical. They'll be like, oh, my hamstrings feel really tight. Oh, my body feels so heavy in my wrists, or, whatever. But then I'll ask them, I'll start trying to build a little more interoception and get them to think about, well, is that bringing up emotions? Is it bringing up, are you having sensations talk to you? Is a color coming into your field of vision? Are you seeing a picture? Does a phrase pop into your mind? So I'm kind of helping them learn how to hear their other senses, like how to tap into the sixth sense in its many ways that it shows up, and just practicing what I like to call compassionate curiosity. Like when something comes up, asking, I wonder why, but doing it from a place that is non-judgmental. And that's really key. And as I kind of help lead them into knowing themselves better, and maybe, recognizing their needs, and perhaps starting to set boundaries a little more, or things like that, I'm empowering them. It's really my role as a yoga therapist is to give them the tools to heal themselves. Um, and so I'm not really healing people per se. I mean, if I'm doing Reiki or shamanic work, yeah, there's help in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
But my ultimate goal is to give people what they need to care for themselves and to keep themselves at their best. And we do define wellness not as like being cured per se, but as I think of it as a mitigation of the negative effects of disease um, or imbalances. Like we aren't necessarily going to cure cancer with yoga therapy, but we can reduce the suffering you have because of the cancer and because of the treatment for cancer. So we can help bring more comfort to that discomfort of the chemotherapy and things like that.
So Kim, I asked Kristi this a second ago, so I want to ask you too. Before you got into yoga therapy, had you had any sort of metaphysical or paranormal experiences?
I wouldn't have described them as that then, but looking back, that's what they were. Mine are similar to Kristi's. I could walk into my PT or my acupuncturist and pretty much say exactly like this muscle, this, and they were very shocked that I could say what exactly was going on and how connected I was to my body. I've also had some experiences in my life, paranormal, I guess. I've had one, the specific that always comes to mind. It was right before a car crash. I had someone from who moved on and transitioned, kind of came and protected me right before that car crash, and it came and went, and I didn't even know how to describe it or experience it until yoga therapy, and I actually had never even talked about it until just a few months ago, actually, with Kristi. And it is very similar in healing, even with the yoga therapy piece, as I bring it all together. So it brings all of those pieces, even the paranormal, together and brings a wholeness and a calmness.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
one of the advantages of yoga, and especially like yin yoga and restorative yoga, where you focus more on the stillness and the connecting, is that you you build that awareness, but also like sometimes we experience things that we can't put words to, and then we store that in our body because we haven't been able to express it and let it go. And yoga can free those things up, and so they bubble up to the surface, but you don't have to be able to give name to them or know what the event is necessarily to release that trauma. So when I work with people, I'm very trauma informed, giving them agency. You know, I don't tell them to go into down dog. I ask, would you like to give it a try? And they have the opportunity to say no, and I'll give them a different option. And it's all about having clear channels of communication and choices, and they're truly directing their progress and their healing journey.
So when people come to you for yoga therapy, is that what they come in and ask for, or do they come in for yoga and the therapy comes along with it? For example, I love yoga, but I wouldn't know, like, until my friend told me about this. I had never heard of yoga therapy, so I would not know that this was something that I could ask for.
It's a mix. I'd say like in my group sessions, a lot of those people are there just for yoga, and then they realize, after spending a few weeks with me and stuff, that I teach different. It's a different experience than your usual yoga class. And then they may reach out to me and say, there's something a little more personal I want to work on. Can we work individually? And so that is usually how it happens. But occasionally there's someone like yourself who knows that they already like yoga and they know they need therapy. And whether it's cultural conditioning or familial beliefs or whatever, like the idea of going to an actual therapist is intimidating, they might come to me. Now, I'm most of the time going to gently urge them to also see a psychotherapist because, like I said, I can't diagnose as long as they're safe and I don't feel they're at risk for anything. I'll work with them for a little bit and try open them up to that idea. But if I feel they really need to, get a diagnosis, get some medicine, because I'm not anti-medicine at all. I think that can work in tandem to help you move forward. I will definitely refer them to a therapist or a social worker. But we can work in tandem, and actually I like working as part of a team, working with the therapist, working with the PT, working with the massage therapist, just making sure that we're doing the best we can to help them heal.
What has been your favorite part of the experience so far?
So for me, it's been a lot of utilizing the tools that I've learned in helping my sister. So my sister is autistic, and I didn't know that I was utilizing a lot of the tools until I started to learn them, and I noticed, oh well, I'd always done that when helping my sister, and so I've been sharpening those tools and working with her, and that's been my biggest gift that I think I've been able to give back to that community for me.
And for me, it would be finding a purpose in my chronic pain and a purpose in some of my past traumas, that those experiences have, created me to be a wounded healer. So I'm able to help other people walk those paths and make sense of their own journeys of not being as well as they would like to be, and finding their purpose in that, whether it was trauma or an illness or what have you, and giving them the tools to create more comfort in the discomfort. That's really, it's kind of sort of my tagline, officially, unofficially. Because I don't know, that was the huge transformation that happened for me, is that I realized that I didn't have to suffer as much as I was suffering. There were things I could do to improve the situation. And well, I think in general, the idea of a human having control is a bit false. It's an illusion that we have much of any control, but still having that sense of agency and stuff, but that has been stripped away from me with the chronic pain. I felt like the pain decided if I could wash my hair on a given day, or if I could go out and have coffee with a friend and things like that. And I learned that it doesn't have to dictate my whole life.
I think that is beautiful. The idea of taking your own experience where, from the outside looking in, somebody could say, oh, that's just tragic. It's a horrible experience. But being able to learn what the lesson is in the experience and being able to use what you're learning to help other people is really one of the best ways that we can help each other out as a community and as a world. So I think that's wonderful.
Thank you.
If somebody wanted to get in touch with the two of you, what would be the best way to do that?
Well, I have a website at optimalwellnessyoga.com, and there's a form on there one can fill out. You can also send an email to optimalwellnessyoga@gmail.com. Got to get the yoga in there or it goes to somebody else. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me there as well. Oh, and I'm slowly kind of dipping my toe in the TikTok waters, but kind of unofficially. And I'm on YouTube. So.
Okay. So if I link to optimalwellnessyoga.com, do you have links to your social media from there?
I believe so. And if I don't, I'll fix it.
Okay. Well, I'll link to that in the show notes. So it'll be easy, like a one click for people to find you.
At least Facebook and Instagram are on there. I don't know if I've added YouTube and TikTok yet, but they're there.
It's a starting point.
Yes.
Kim, is there somewhere people could get in touch with you?
They're interested in reaching out to me. I don't have a website up yet, but you could reach me at kim.ann.stewart, stewart@gmail.com.
Okay. So I want to thank you two so much for spending some time with me tonight and explaining yoga therapy and how you got into it. You have some really cool stories. And I'm going to encourage any listeners who are interested in learning more into reaching out to both of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks again to Kristi and Kim for joining me, and thank you for listening. As I said during the interview, the link to Kristi's website, Optimal Wellness Yoga, is in the show notes, and she can do sessions via Zoom. So if you're interested in learning more, please contact her. You can keep up with the show on its Facebook page, facebook.com/peeppodcast. We have a group linked from that page in case you're interested in joining the conversation. One thing to note about the group is that I only approve group members who answer the questions, and unfortunately, Facebook doesn't keep a list of people who'd be interested in being on the show. So if you said yes to that question, please get in touch through the website. If you have an idea for a show topic, you can fill out the contact form at peeppodcast.com. That's PEEP podcast.com. Remember, that stands for People Experiencing Everyday Paranormal. If I can find a study about it, I'll be happy to use it. Special thanks to the listeners who've submitted topic ideas. Also, if you're interested in sharing your own personal stories of paranormal experiences, I'd love to have you on the show. It can be as anonymous as you'd like. If you enjoy the podcast, please give it some rating love on your favorite podcast app, share it with friends, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Doing so will help the podcast be found by others. Special thanks to everyone who has given the show some love. I really appreciate it. The Peep Podcast is 100% free to enjoy, but it's not free for me to create. So like many other independent podcasters, I'll happily accept donations. If you're interested in supporting the show financially, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Nicolle or join me on patreon.com/Nicolle. All donations will be received with humble gratitude. No matter how you support the show, listening, telling others about it, financial assistance, or any other way, I absolutely appreciate your being here. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe and be well. Bye.